bit about how practice has been going.
So I'll give an opening statement this time.
If you, well, okay, we'll take.
No, I'll do it. No, I mean,
He didn't do an
practice has
opening
been good.
statement last time.
No, really have. We had some really good practices, and then of course we had the scrimmage on Saturday, and you know, overall we had some bright spots in the scrimmage, but I didn't think we performed to the standard we want to for the first scrimmage. So we're obviously looking forward to the second one this Saturday, and we're working hard towards that today. And we're getting to the point where a lot of the base core offense is in. So we're kind of trying to just really rep those things and get good at it. And of course, we're obviously starting to take some things to another level with our older guys as far as what we're doing. But we're getting good work. I think we're 9 days in, and you know, I like the work we're getting done.
What are you seeing out of the competition at running back?
You know, anytime you get the first live scrimmage, you can't base it all off of one scrimmage, but you start to see more separation. And so I think all three of them did some things well and did some things not so well. You know, you look at a guy like Rock Thomas, he had some good runs, but he had some that he's got to get. He's so athletic, so talented. You know, he thinks he can take everyone to the house. Well, in our league, there's some pretty good players on defense. And so sometimes there's nothing wrong with a 4, 5, 6 yard run. And you got to kind of be more of a one-cut guy, stick your foot in the ground, get north and south, be willing to take the 4, 5, and 6 yard runs, knowing that if you do that enough, you're going to be good enough to pop some big ones. But I think every now and then he tries to make the home run play happen, and we end up going sideways. So we need him to play downhill a little bit more, but I thought from a pass protection standpoint, all three of those guys did a good job. I thought Javon Robinson did some nice things in the run game for his first scrimmage. And I think things are starting to slow down. He's not as far along as Peyton and Rockman on offense, but he shouldn't be. But I think things are starting to slow down. He didn't have a lot of busts in the scrimmage. So that was the biggest thing from a running back standpoint. We didn't have a lot of you know, Coach Horton calls them bull yards. We didn't generate a lot of yards for ourselves, so that wasn't the best part. But we didn't have a lot of busts. We were good at pass protection. We were just kind of steady. We weren't exceptional, but that was the first scrimmage, and we've got more to come.
Who's your best running back as far as blocking right now?
I think that remains to be seen. I think the best thing about all three of those guys is they're all willing. None of them are unwilling. None of them are turning it down. So you know, that's the best thing. Like I said, we didn't have any busts and protections in the scrimmage. That's number one. I think our things we can get better at is more just sustaining the blocks. Once we engage with the guy, and sometimes we're, you know, if I'm Rock Thomas and I'm on a guy that's bigger than me, I've got to kind of grab a root and growl and hang in there. And, you know, we just got to sustain the blocks longer. But for the most part, they're doing a good job.
Any separation yet there at center?
You know, I don't know. Austin, we saw some things in the scrimmage with Austin that are promising. You know, kind of in scrimmage things that he adjusted once he saw kind of how the defensive front was playing. He made some in scrimmage adjustments. I think Xavier Dampier's having a good spring ball. I mean, that's been a real bright spot for us. He's solid. He's steady. Both of them are snapping the football well. That's first and foremost. You got to have good snaps. We didn't have any bad snaps in the scrimmage, and we didn't have a lot of missed assignments. And those guys, you know, mentally responsible, IDing some things and stuff like that. But as a whole, it was a solid first scrimmage. It wasn't exceptional, and I don't know if any guys kind of taken over and won that job.
Dion dealing with the foot right now? Or?
No, Dion's fine. You know, Dion, he scrimmaged Saturday. He practiced today. You know, he had one of those, just a mild rolled ankle from the scrimmage, but nothing that even, you know, kept him from practicing today. So he should be fine.
Would you consider if Xavier and Austin both in the top 5 offensive linemen, move one of those guys to guards? Is that something y'all talked about?
It's not something we've talked about yet. Right now, we're really wanting those guys both focusing at center. And you know, we haven't moved guys a ton this spring. We've kind of put them all in one spot, let them play. We feel good about where they're positioned, and we're just getting all the information we can get. And you know, that's one of those just after spring ball, we may sit down and go, okay, let's look at this going into the summer and fall. But right now, are they both capable of doing that? Sure, but we've repped those guys exclusively at center.
Rhett, the quarterbacks, have they responded, and are you close to saying, okay, this is the guy?
They've responded well. I'm happy with the way Sean and Jeremy are both competing. For a guy who's supposed to be in high school, 9 practices in, Tyler Queen's done some good things. You can tell, you know, he's just grown up around the game. He's coached his kids, smart young man, really tries to soak everything in. You're telling him. You know, he did a good job Saturday in the scrimmage. We let him be live. And, you know, it's kind of become a tradition here. Your first scrimmage, you get to be live. So he did a good job. You know, he extended some drives, threw a touchdown pass on a scramble play. There's a couple third downs he extended the play. So he did some good things. Jeremy and Sean they've been solid. You know, they haven't made a lot of mistakes mentally. They know the offense. They're doing what they're supposed to do. I'm just wanting in the last 6 practices those guys to both take the next step and go from being just steady to being, you know, great. And, you know, hey, the tough throw where the guy's covered, but we got to drop it in right here. I expect them to do that every time. You know, we've got to get the ball in the end zone more than we did the other day. I think we had 2 touchdowns. We had 2 drives where we drove the ball over 10 plays inside the 10. One time, I think, inside the 5, and we kicked field goals. Well, we know all too well from 2 games last year that can't happen. So, just as a whole, I'm just ready for them from a consistency standpoint, both accurately throwing the football and just kind of really moving the football down the field. These last 2 scrimmages, I'm looking for those guys to really raise their level.
So
Right,
you
going-
still see this as a race?
Oh, yeah.
An undecided quarterback race?
We haven't, no one's earned a spot yet. And, you know, I mean, it's just at every position. You asked about center, you asked about quarterback, we compete. And it doesn't matter if it looks like it's going to lean one way or the other, we'll keep competing. Because you want to know as a coach, how guys respond. You know, sometimes after a scrimmage you come in and all of a sudden the guy's been running with the 1s and the guy's been running with the 2s the whole spring, you just shake it up. Hey, he was better than you in the scrimmage. He's 1, he's 2. I want to know, how's the guy going to respond that got elevated to the first spot? Well, how's he going to respond? How's the guy that got dropped down going to respond? You know, at any position. I want to know, just because you think you're about to win the job or may not, how are you going to respond? I mean, all those things are things as coaches are not mind games, but you want to see how guys are going to respond in practice and scrimmages before you get in front of 100,000 people. So we've not decided on one position anywhere on offense. There's some that, you know, most people could make a pretty good educated guess at, but we've not made any of those decisions yet.
Right, going back to the running backs and the blocking. Last time we met with you, you said last year the running backs didn't give up a single sack. I mean, is that something you'd ever had happen before in a season?
No, probably not. I mean, it was really a nice job of those guys doing a good job. Now, one thing that's lost is Nick did a really good job at saving us every now and then, whether it be a running back, a protection bust, or just us putting them in a bad situation. So when you look at our low number of sacks the last 2 years, well, I think we've done a really good job up front and with our backs. But hey, let's not lie. Nick bailed us out some. So we've got to be even better this year. Not to say that I don't think Jeremy and Sean can do that. I think they can. They're very good athletes, but I think that's a tribute to Coach Horton, the job he does coaching, and so far I think he's doing a good job with these 3.
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, how much do the guys now get reminded of that from last year? That, hey, this position didn't give up a single sack.
You know, I haven't reminded them any. Tim might have. You know, the thing I like about those 3 guys, you know, you got Rock and Peyton got to learn from Cameron and Corey and how they just, their professionalism, how they just approach practice, approached everything. They were just A+. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better as a coach. And Tim does a great job with his room. So Rock and Peyton already know those expectations. You got a guy like Javon with all the hype and all that coming out of junior college. He comes right in and he's just blended right in with those guys. So we got a good culture in that running back room.
Jeremy said his goal is to pass for 3,000 and rush for 1,000. And that's numbers like Cam. And for one, can you see that as possible, especially when running-wise, remember he was saying you guys just didn't have him run. So can you see him being a 1,000-yard rusher from the top of the passing?
He's capable. I mean, Jeremy's very athletic. Let's not forget he had a lot of SEC basketball offers and, you know, was arguably the best basketball player in our state too. You know, Jeremy needs to worry about, you know, winning the job and trying to be the best he can be right now. However, I do like that, you know, you set high goals for yourself. That's what you want. You don't want a guy saying, man, I hope I throw for 1,000 yards and rush for 10. So he's capable. Jeremy, and I believe this about a lot of our guys, that, you know, they can reach a lot of high goals if they want to. There's a lot of work that's going to go into that. You know, Jeremy just stylistically is different than a guy like Nick. So when you look at how we were maybe when Jeremy would come in the game, you know, our game plan from a running standpoint at the quarterback position was maybe different. Jeremy's very capable of running the zone read. You know, he just got to read it appropriately. But when he does, he's going to gain yards. He's shown that in spring ball. I mean, I know y'all haven't seen that, but he's had some long runs in spring ball. What he can't do is be wrong and make it right as much on the perimeter. And then Jeremy's a lot better north-south.
You told ESPN last week that the goal for the offense is 8 plays a game, 8 passing plays a game with over 30 yards.
Okay.
That would shatter records by the NCAA for college passing. I mean, that's more than 20-plus yard plays by any team in the last 5 years.
Right.
Do you think that's even remotely realistic? 8 plays a game?
Well, it is, and let me clarify. I'm not saying we hit all 8 of them. Okay, I'm saying we call 8 over that limit. Okay, now obviously we want to hit as many as we can. If you call 8 plays vertically over, you know, 25, 30 yards down the field, if you hit half of them, That's for either touchdowns or big explosive plays. And then the ones you don't hit, there's a good chance you back the defense up. Now you're making them defend the whole field. So that's our goal, is we want to have 8 or more vertical shots. Doesn't mean we hit all 8 of them. If we do, that's great. Let's break records. But, you know, and I think we've still kind of had similar commitments the last few years. I mean, you look at Sammy Coates, he's led the league and been top 3 in the country both years in yards per catch. We've had receivers before averaging 29 and 31 yards a catch in a season. So, you know, the vertical ball is a part of what we do, and that's not going to change. And so that's kind of what I meant by that statement.
Rhett, go on, dude.
Has there been any separation at H-back to this point?
No, I think really pleased with where, that's been a big bright spot where both those guys are at. I mean, just from an athleticism, a physicality, an attitude, an intelligence level, I think both Cameron Petway, Chandler Cox doing very well. Cameron Petway is probably a little bit further ahead of him physically, but he should be. He's been in college a year. Chandler's supposed to be in high school still. He came in early. So, but that's probably the only Bubba's just, we call him Bubba. Cameron's just got a little more, you know, physicality and bite to him, just naturally because he's a little older, he's more physical, he weighs more. But Chandler stuck his helmet in there, man, and he's made some big plays. He made 2 big catches on Saturday in the scrimmage. I mean, really pleased with both those guys, and they're both going to help us next year.
You talked about the quarterbacks being solid but not being great.
Yeah.
What is preventing that going to the great level? Is it trying to just keep the offense and not mess up, or what do you feel like you're not letting them go to that?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things. You know, like for instance in the scrimmage Saturday, you know, Jeremy and Sean both, they graded out fine. If you just look at their grade sheet, Jeremy and Sean, neither one had any missed assignments. I think I had them both with 2 poor throws, bad balls. You know, for the most part, they did their job. But, you know, I want a quarterback who's going to go win the football game. You know, we're not just there to manage it and keep things tight and let's see if they make a mistake or whatever. We want guys who are going to go win the football game. And part of that right now that's tough is we're rotating a lot of guys. You know, it's not like the same guys in on every series with those guys. You know, we got probably 8 deep wideouts we're rotating. We got 3 running backs, 2 H-backs. We got 2 different centers. So, you know, I may give Jeremy a series with the 1s and Sean with the 2s, then flip them the next time. So in spring ball, it's not as much like fall camp where you're every day repping with the same guys, the 1s with the 1s, the 2s with the 2s. There's more competition, and that's good, but it's hard maybe, you know, as a quarterback, it matters if the kid runs it right at 9 yards when he's supposed to run it at 10 or not. That's a big difference, you know, and so if the receiver's just a hair off, that can affect the quarterback statistically or us moving the football down the field. So, but that's what I meant. They did fine. They did their job, but was it a championship effort? Is it going to win us the whole thing? That's the level we got to get to. So I'm pleased with where they're at because they're not getting us beat and they're doing a fine job, but they're not to their potential where I want them to be.
Is Tony Stevens becoming more consistent, or how has he evolved this spring, if at all has come along?
You know, he is. He's still not where he needs to be. I mean, Tony's got to be an every down, every play kind of guy. He's still doing what he normally does, showing flashes. The thing with Tony that I've liked is from a mental standpoint, and he should be after 2 years, I feel like he feels good about the system to where we can move him around a little bit. And that'll give him a chance to get on the field more and to help us more. And so, you know, I think that's one thing Coach Craig's done a nice job, and lately been moving him around a little bit more in practice, and he's responded well to that. And I think that's only a good thing for us and for him.
How about Jason Smith? How's he doing?
Transitioning well, you know, I mean, with the exception of his high school all-star game, he's never really played a lot of receiver. He's always been a quarterback, but he's doing well. You know, he still will have a role at some point down the road, whether it be a real role, emergency role, who knows at this point. But, you know, he's a guy that we're trying to get on the field. You know, he's a great kid who's willing to soak everything up and learn and play hard, and he's getting better every day with reps. And right now, you know, we're trying to give him as many reps as we can before we get out of spring, so he can feel really good just from not only playing the position, but knowing his position, you know, at receiver when we get out of spring, so he can get better over the summer.
We've seen a dude get stretched out on the side before practice the last couple of weeks, and it looked like it later on stretch. It looked like he was having a little bit of trouble with right legs. There was some minor issue there.
Yeah, there's nothing to that. It's 9 practices in. A lot of guys are wideouts, running backs, linebackers. They're just tight. I mean, there's no issues there whatsoever.
Rick,
Would you
you
like
talk
to
about
maybe- Go ahead.
you talk about the 2 freshman offensive linemen who should have been in high school
Yeah.
now and how they're doing.
It's good that they're here. And, You know, you can tell that things move fast for them. But it's only going to help them because you get 15 practices here, and you know they've been very coachable, very eager. They're going to have such a foundation when they get through spring, and then by the time we get to fall camp, you would expect them to be at a much faster pace than they would have been obviously if they weren't here. So are they just world beaters right now? No, because things are moving fast. We've installed just about something every day we've been here. The defense has installed something new just about every day. But those guys are repping, you know, almost like they're backups everywhere with the amount of depth we have. And so that's good. I mean, the more reps they get, the better, and that's the plus of them being here early.
Would you like to name a starting quarterback by the end of the spring?
I don't really have a preference one way or the other. I'm fine if we do. I think each year your team and the people competing are different. Some years you want to keep the competition going. Some years you want to name them. I think when you know, what's the reason to wait? And so that's something Coach and I will talk about as we get, you know, either closer to 8A or on the other side of it.
In that vein, Brett, when you figured out what you want to do for 8A, where last year obviously it was basically first team, second team, Nick on one side, Germany the other 2 years ago when it was a race at the time, probably you went back and forth between the two guys to figure out how you want to handle that.
I've got my ideas in my head how I'd want to handle those three guys. You know, Coach and I haven't really sat down really with he and I and Will and just discuss exactly how we're going to do A-Day. So I don't know if we'll do it exactly like we did last year or not. But, you know, we'll obviously get with Coach and whatever direction we're going to do with the big picture of how we're going to do A-Day. Then I'll within that decide kind of how to rep those guys. But I want to give them both good opportunities. You know, I think they're working hard. They've earned it. And, you know, we want to see what they can do when there's people around.
Take a few more.
Rhett, on the updated roster from yesterday, Jason Smith is listed at 178. I mean, what's his ideal weight for what you guys want to play at, and does that change considering he's not going to be quarterback full time now?
Yeah, I mean, whether he's playing receiver or quarterback, Jason could bulk up. I mean, 178. Now he's a good-looking 178, and he's a fast 178, so he's hard to catch. But you know, he could bulk up his frame a little bit, help him be less susceptible to injury, whether he's playing quarterback or playing wide out. To me, however much weight of muscle he can put on is good weight without slowing down and losing his quickness. You know, so is that 185? Is that 190, 195? I don't know yet. I don't think you could expect him to put 15, 20 pounds on in 1 year, you know, but he's going to be a sophomore. If you get him to 185 by the season, then by the next year he's around 195, and then maybe he's around 200 by the time he gets out of here. You know, I don't know. You look at a guy like Nick Marshall last year, he put on about 10 or 12 pounds. I think you saw a big difference because he wasn't hurt like he was the first year. So I'm hoping a guy like Rock Thomas is about 10 pounds heavier than he was last year, hoping that'll help him be more durable. So, you know, when Jason gets 2 weeks from now outside of spring ball, he's going to have 2 good cycles with Coach Russell in the weight room, and I think that'll be valuable for him to help us this year.
What have you seen from Will's defense going against them?
You know, the most important thing I've seen is, man, those guys play with great effort and they fly around. And, you know, that's a big part of defense. You know, you're not always going to be in the right place. You're not always going to be in the right call, but you can make up for a lot of things with playing hard and effort. And, you know, I think for the most part, just like the intensity on Saturday that they had in the scrimmage was at an all-time high since we've been here, in my opinion. I mean, those guys were excited to play. They were flying around. There were some good licks. They were playing good team defense. And that only makes both sides better. Obviously, it makes them better. That makes us better. It makes us raise our level. And so that's what kind of the challenge is to us this week. But just as a whole, just the energy and the way they swarm, the confidence they have, you know, they kind of walk around with a different pep in their step, which is good.
What's the communication like with Coach Muschamp and making sure that you maybe even put him in a situation where he can work on some more things than maybe usual you would for the defense in the spring?
Phenomenal. I've loved every second of working with him. You know, not only is he's great on the defensive side, he's been a head coach, so he gets the big picture. And we work very closely every practice, including today. I mean, we'll have 2 periods that are maybe more our emphasis, 2 periods that are their emphasis. We both get stuff out of it, but there's certain things he needs to see that we don't need to see as much of. But there's certain things we need to see that he doesn't need. And at the end of the day, when you're playing full speed and you're going good on good, you're getting better. And so we do a good job, I think, pretty much every practice of. There's certain things we both need a lot of, and there's certain things, hey, let me give you some of this here, and then we'll kind of service you more here with kind of the situations or things you need. And it's been really, really easy. Really
You talked about your quarterbacks. You want one of them or both of them to step up and play at the championship level.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're waiting for before you name a starter?
I don't know. I don't know if that's what we're waiting for before we name a starter. You know, I want them both to raise their level, just like I want everybody on offense to. And I think they're in a good direction. But that may or may not have any bearing. I mean, we'll know. We'll know, hey, this is the right guy for now. But it's kind of like last year. We felt like we could win with Nick, and we felt like we could win with Jeremy. That's the way I want it to be this year. You know, and if it's not 2, maybe 3. Because, you know, we've been fortunate the last 2 years, with the exception of a little bit here or there with Nick, we've been healthy. You know, there's no guarantees, so you got to have more than one guy ready to play and win every game on your schedule.
Rhett, this time last year, you made some moves just to experiment a little bit on the offensive line. We moved Chad to the left side,
Yeah.
him out a little bit, and it obviously paid off when, unfortunately, Alex got hurt.
Yeah.
What are you doing at the left guard spot with Alex unable to fully go, and what is the contingency if he's not able to go by the fall? Is the plan to move Avery there and then break the
Right.
tackle, or what is the contingency on that?
Don't have a big contingency right yet because we feel good about where Alex is at. You know, Alex is cleared to do a lot. We're kind of, I mean, he's practiced again today. We're just kind of trying to be smart with how we manage him through spring. But the positive is he's been practicing really ever since we got back from spring break, you know, with everybody else. We just kind of limited the volume on him. Devontae Danzy being a guy who played a lot last year is a big positive. You can just see, being a senior and having all those reps banked now, the level he's raised. So I think we're probably in a little different situation. We feel good what we know about those guys. And we already kind of know, hey, if this guy went down, we had to move a guy here or here. We kind of know what we do. So I feel good about where we got the guys at. We're not really moving them around at all. There's a couple guys with the backup group as of now that, you know, like a Will Adams or Robert Leff that have been here a while, you know, that are smart kids that know they can maybe play a couple different positions, which gives you some flexibility. And I think those 2 guys particularly are having a good spring camp so far.
Any other questions?
I wore 'em out. Wore 'em down.
23 minutes, 22 minutes.
Jacksonville, Nashville, talk to